Hey, this is Gary Parker. Welcome to some more CS120 computer literacy stuff. Today we are going to take a look at Google Drive and URLs. So, share our screen. Let's see what we got. So here I am in our Canvas course, and remember you can use the little arrows on the side of the module headings to reduce and expand those. Important links might be something you come back to frequently. I'm going to go over some of the stuff today in the Google Drive and file sharing section, and all the videos I do end up on the YouTube playlist. If you haven't checked out the page on testing in this class, please do that soon, and let me know if you have any questions. So, week 2. We're going to take a look at the Google Drive tutorial here, and then what is a URL. So the Google Drive tutorial has us heading over to GCF Learn, or gcflearnfree.org, and they have a whole bunch of tutorials under their Google Drive page. And so, all about Google Drive, getting started with Google Drive, creating Google Docs, which we'll explore more on the next tutorial, uploading files to Google Drive. And so I wanted to take a look at this fourth one here, uploading files to Google Drive and then managing those files and sharing and collaborating. So I'm going to jump over to that tutorial. And hopefully click before. And it appears to have slowed down because of the lack of sun in Pennington. Hopefully you have sun where you are. Come on, you can do it. I swear I was just over there. Let's try it. Well, let's see what's going to work. Alright, so let's come down. Easy challenge. Okay, this is the one I was hoping to go to. I'll investigate why that didn't work. So you should definitely read through this stuff here. This is the text for the course, so it's important to check this stuff out. We'll work more later on converting files, but again, that's important for you to look at here. There may be slight differences between Word documents and Google documents when we translate one file type to another. We'll talk more about that in the future. So what I want to do is take a file given to me by someone else. So here they have an example file on the challenge here. That's not the one I wanted. Oops. I thought there was a Google Doc there. I'm on the wrong page. That one. That's the one I want here. Okay, so if somebody shares a Google Doc with you, sometimes they give it to you in view-only mode, sometimes you get edit access to it. So here I have a file that's view-only. If it's view-only and I want to do something with it, then I have to make a copy of it. If I add it to my drive, I'm still adding a link to this view-only file. And so if I open it from my drive, so I just added it to my drive, I can organize, put it somewhere. The tutorial, and the folder here. This is the Google Drive tutorial. Move it into that folder. So now if I go to my Google Drive, inside CS120, tutorials, Google Drive, interesting, did not go there. Why not? There it is. So if I reopen it, it's still that same view-only file. close that here because I have a copy of it within here. So what I really need to do if I want to edit it and do something with it, I need to make a copy of it. And then two things I want to do. I want to give it a better name than copy of. So I can say box text basics. And then I need to put it somewhere. So my drive, my CS120 folder, it was a tutorial, and I'm still on the Google Drive part of the tutorial, not officially yet the Google Docs. And so I can select that folder. So I have a name for it, and I have a folder for it. So I'll put it in there. And then it gives it to me in editable mode. So notice I have the full set of menus up here. My toolbars are active. I can do anything I want here, like change the dates. Still. My file to edit. So when you get a file that's shared with you from someone else, there's usually a couple things you want to do. You want to make a copy of it sometimes. If they shared it with you in edit mode, then you should probably file it somewhere in your file system. Otherwise, it's hard to find. So, for example, if the file that you were looking for wasn't in the folder you thought it was, so here I have that folder there now, then most likely if someone shared it with you, it only lives in the shared with me area. The only way it's going to end up inside one of my folders is if when I open that file, I choose to add it to my drive and then organize it and put it somewhere. So we'll see that again in just a little bit. Now, suppose I want to share this with someone else. This is a big part of using Drive, sharing files. So to right-click on that, and I can choose Share. So a couple ways to get in the share settings for an object. If right here at the top it says this is my Google Drive folder, I'm in right here. I can choose Share the whole folder. In a particular file, either I can right-click it and choose Share for that file, or I can open it up to view that file. And once in there, I can choose Share. And here, right now, it's set anyone with the link can view, and that is probably because the one I copied from GCF Learn Free was set that anyone with the link can view. And then here, I can pick someone to share it with. So maybe I'll share it with Parker. Address. Share it with both of the Parkers. Running out of people to share it with. Okay. So type in an email address that you know. If Google recognizes the email address, it'll pop up a little icon of that person. If they have a picture there, or maybe they'll just do like a C for Coach or a P for Parker. And then when you do share something, you should include a note. Relevance. Spell things correctly. And then send it off. Okay. Other way you can share is by getting the share link. And so we've done this a little bit before. So I'm going to copy the link here. So suppose I needed to submit this. So here I just need a link to the folder. All right, let's go back to the folder. Google Drive folder. And I want to get the shareable link. Control C to copy. Let's highlight it. Submit, and then the text entry box pops up. So again, in Canvas, there's multiple ways to put a link in. One way is to just paste a URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. And if you hit enter after that, Canvas assumes you wanted to make it a hyperlink. If you don't hit enter, it will not make it a hyperlink. Do that. The other way to do it is to add what's called link text. And so here I could say Google Drive folder, and that text can be a link to my folder. So I highlight the text after I make it, I hit the link to URL, and then I paste over what it has there. And just double check, if I go to the beginning of it, it starts with https:// and it has the googledrive.com, and then the other information Google needs to give whoever clicks this link the right file. So then I can insert it. And now I just have a cleaner looking link, right? You agree this is kind of ugly. Who wants to look at that? I'm in. All right, and then I can submit it. Now, important thing, before you go submitting stuff like I just did, probably would have been a good idea if I read through everything carefully about exactly what needs to be done before I do the submission. So please take a read through that. When you're done with all the stuff in the Google Drive 7 tutorials here, each one has a challenge requiring you to do something. Some of those challenges lead to files, not all of them. When you're done, you'll end up with 6 different files in your Google Drive tutorial folder. Okay? And whether you look at them in icon view or in list view, I tend to prefer a list view. You'll look something like that. And there'll be a folder for practice documents too, based on those tutorials. If you have any questions about that, let me know. That's a snapshot of what your drive might look like after you're done going through each of these tutorials and their associated challenges. So back to URLs for a minute. Part of this week's work is to read a little bit more about URLs and links. So we started using them last week, and people did a fantastic job after the first or second time of getting those URLs to be hyperlinks. So a couple things you want to read about. Web addresses, what is a URL? And I link out to 2 pages here from Mozilla Developer. One is called What is a URL? And Mozilla, that might sound familiar to you. They are the ones who make Firefox, another browser. I'm using Google Chrome right now, but I use Firefox just as often. So it tells what a URL is, Uniform Resource Locator. And then down here, they dive into the anatomy of the URL. And so I just wanted to focus on that a little bit. So the web is part of the internet. The internet's a bigger thing. There's lots of stuff that goes on the internet that's not necessarily the World Wide Web. So the World Wide Web is this graphical interface we have to part of the internet. There's many kinds of protocols. A protocol is a set of rules that make something happen. So you follow a certain set of rules when you're doing your dishes, or you're making your bed, or you're doing your laundry, or you're getting to school or work or home or whatever. When you start a car, rules are things we follow. So computers have these rules they follow to make stuff happen. And protocols are certain kinds of rules. So there's a protocol for how my laptop here exchanges information with some computer out on the internet so that I can see this page, or that I can do things in Canvas. The first part of a URL, a Uniform Resource Locator, is what protocol the computers are going to use to talk to each other. Following the protocol comes with what's next is the domain name. And the domain name is pretty important because it basically says what company or group or individual that you're working with. So for example, I can go to Google. And at Google, I can go to Mail. And now I get a slightly different address. Instead of google.com, it's mail.google.com. And so anything that appears before the domain name is something.com or something.org or something.us. Anything that occurs before that is called a subdomain. And so you got to be careful about domains and subdomains. So let me give a couple of examples of that with a new document. So we load this up so you can all see better. So this is an example of a domain name, so google.com. Anything that appears before the google.com, like mail.google.com, good, that means I'm still at Google because this part right here is the real domain name. Anything below that is kind of like a different part of a computer or a different computer at Google. It could be something like maps. However, there are a lot of people out there that are trying to screw us, and they make up URLs similar to what we think we should see, but different. So for example, if I went to some site called google.com, I'm not really at Google, even though it says that in the domain right here. Anybody can make any subdomain they want. I'm really at the place called mycompany.com. And so if I'm trying to do something and I think I'm at Google and I look at the domain name and I see it has a subdomain that says Google, but the main domain part is not Google, I should be skeptical of that site because I could be at a bad place. So maybe you're going to Facebook. That part looks good, but then it says something like, get you sucka.com, and that could be a dangerous place, even if it looks nicer than gonna get you sucka. Right? So you gotta be careful. Domain name is the part that is by the .com or the .org or the .us. Anything to the left of that is called a subdomain, and you gotta worry about that. Similarly, in the domain, maybe you go to a site like this, someplace.it/Google. Again, since Google isn't right before the first slash, it's someplace.it is where we're really at, and then they're just putting Google after that. And they could even have something called google.com after that. So this is still a problem, right? So I'm going to highlight these problem ones in red. That's not good right there. More, the screen is too blown up. Where is my coloring tools? Coloring tools. Sorry, too many different programs stuck in my head. So we want to highlight that red. So that's dangerous. This one right here and this one right here, these are dangerous too. Not the place I think I'm at. Even worse than either of those two, sometimes you get a link to go somewhere, and the link might say something like google.com. However, it goes somewhere else. So I'm going to make this a hyperlink just for fun. So I highlight it, and then I say make this a link. And then maybe the actual the URL is something like http://304.123.10.25. I know it doesn't look right. Thank you. Do it anyway. Oh, come on. Just do it. /by. All right. Didn't want to do it. Right here. I'm just making these numbers up. So on the internet, every name of a site we go to is associated with a number. So google.com is associated with that number, and here's just a number right here. That number part above there is called an IP address. And everything has an IP address on the internet. Phones have an IP address when they connect to the internet. But if you ever get a message and the address is hiding behind the text, happen to be numbered websites, it's a temporary website somebody set up to try and rip you off. So be careful about that. How do you know? Well, let's see. If I go in here to a message I got from Google, there's this highlighted text. And I don't think I can blow my browser up enough to show this. But when you point to a hyperlink on a page, the bottom of your browser at the very bottom will pop up the address that that site is taking you to. So if I get an email that looks sketchy and there's a link on it, and I point to the link and I see the address at the bottom says http:// and then it's got a bunch of numbers, do not click that link. Okay, very important. I'll post some more about that later. But the main parts here are, what is a URL? And a URL comes with a protocol, a domain name that locates a computer, and then some information about how to serve the information that you want, which could be a path to a file on a computer somewhere, or it could be a set of parameters that a program is going to use to try and build the file for you on the fly, kind of like Facebook works. Each page is depending on the day, the time, the person that you go to grab it from. The rest of this stuff isn't as important, but please read through it on your own soon. The other thing about what a hyperlink is a combination of URL and then something to click on. So for example, the phrase a link here is called link text. And that link text contains a web address which gets loaded into the address bar for our page. So there's a link and there's a URL associated with that. And the two of those together give something that somebody can click on that takes them to a web page. And we've played around with that link text idea just a few minutes ago in some of our assignments. All right, I'm going to end this for now. So the stuff I went over briefly here is week 2, the Google Drive tutorial, and what is a web address and a URL. I'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.